Welcome. My name is Peter Strong. I'm a professional licensed psychotherapist based in Colorado, and I offer online therapy via Skype for treating anxiety disorders, depression, addictions, PTSD, and other common emotional psychological problems. I specialize in the treatment of agoraphobia. So if you're looking for an online psychotherapist for agoraphobia, then please contact me. Go to my website and learn more about the services that I offer via Skype. And feel free to contact me with any questions you may have. I really enjoy working with agoraphobia, and the mindfulness-based treatment plan that I have developed for agoraphobia is extremely effective. It's based on what we call mindfulness-based exposure therapy. Exposure therapy is very, very important and generally always incorporated in a treatment plan for agoraphobia. But exposure therapy really works best when it's accompanied by some form of training with the anxiety, how to deal with anxiety reactions that occur during those exposure challenges. So that's where the mindfulness-based exposure therapy comes in. We use mindfulness training to work with any anxiety reactions, any panic attacks that may get triggered. So basically the approach is one of setting up a series of exposure challenges, first of all. That's very important. You need to do this in a systematic way, in a regular way, in a disciplined way, doing exposure challenges every day in order to get on top of the anxiety reactions. But we take each challenge and then we prepare for it by playing it through in the mind and watching for any anxiety reactions, any form of anxiety-based thinking that gets triggered when we imagine doing the challenge, when we imagine walking outside of our comfort zone, or going to a shop or a mall, or whatever it might be, or driving beyond a certain distance from home. Whatever form the agoraphobia takes, we set up a series of challenges, and then we prepare for each challenge by playing it through in the mind, finding the anxiety reactions, and then responding to them with mindfulness, whereby we learn, first of all, to break free from that pattern of reactive identification, which causes us to be completely overwhelmed by the anxiety reaction. The first training is to be able to stay conscious with the anxiety without becoming the anxiety. That's the first, most essential part of the training. When we have achieved that, when we can stay as the observer of our anxiety, our true self, the observer that does not react, then we proceed to heal that anxiety. We examine how we can help it heal. The first part of healing is establishing that relationship that's not based on reactivity. The second part is to watch for any form of reactive thinking that feeds that anxiety. So when we see reactive thoughts, we need to change our relationship to those as well, so that we do not become blindly identified with those thoughts. We learn to see the thoughts as an observer, as your true self. We also look at the internal structure of the anxiety, which is always in the form of imagery. That is how emotions work in the mind. It's through internal psychological and habitual imagery. That's what holds emotional energy together to form anxiety or depression or anger or whatever it might be. So we look at the internal imagery, and one of the first things we work on is looking for the position of that emotional imagery. Where do we actually see the imagery? Very often it's in the chest. It could be any place, but we have to look and find out. That habitual position is part of its imagery, and it's a very important part. It's necessary in order for that emotion to work. It has to be in the chest, for example, in order to create anxiety. So when we see something of its position, we then explore changing the position of that emotion, moving it. Sometimes we move it to a place where we can embrace it, rather like taking an animal and moving it onto our lap, where we can embrace it and comfort it. That helps a scared animal overcome its fear. Well, emotions are very, very similar. So we can move the emotion and put it on our lap, and then we can explore how to comfort it, and we can teach the emotion how to release itself, how to let go of its fear. So this way we develop a very strong, compassionate, healing relationship with that anxiety. The biggest problem for most people is that the anxiety reaction becomes isolated, cut off from your true self. It is left abandoned, and it is that sense of isolation which prevents it from healing. So we build a very strong, compassionate, friendly, loving relationship with our anxiety. That is precisely what it needs to heal. So this is the kind of training we would do before doing the exposure challenge. We would ensure that we have healed the anxiety prior to doing the challenge. Then we do the challenge and we stay mindful, which means staying aware and conscious, and if we notice any anxiety arising, then we respond to it with the response of compassion that we have been training on before the challenge. After the challenge, we then do another meditation on the anxiety. We play through the challenge we have just done. We look for any fresh anxiety that's arisen, and we respond to that anxiety with mindfulness, with compassion, in the same way. So this way we're training in a very conscious way with our habitual anxiety reactions, and training them to release their anxiety, teaching them how to heal, how to extinguish themselves, so that we can imagine doing that exposure challenge and not feel any anxiety. So we repeat the challenge after taking a break in this very strategic way, over and over again, until we have completely trained out of the habitual anxiety reactions. Then we may proceed to another challenge, and we do it in the same way, always meditating on the challenge before we do it, watching for anxiety reactions, changing our relationship to the anxiety from one of reactivity to a response that promotes healing. Then we do that second challenge, and we meditate again after the challenge. and then we may go on to a third challenge, and we keep cycling through all of our challenges until we are free from that habitual anxiety. At the end of the day, anxiety is nothing more than habit. It is simply conditioned habit, and that can be changed when we develop a conscious and very friendly, compassionate relationship with that habit. You can't change habits by pushing them away or avoiding them. You can't really effectively change habits by just struggling through either. Mindfulness does not teach tolerance of the anxiety. It prefers to work on healing that anxiety. So that's quite a different approach and much more active, I would say. If you would like to learn more about online therapy for agoraphobia, and you would like to work with an online psychotherapist who specializes in mindfulness therapy for treating agoraphobia, then please go to my website and please email me, and let's schedule a Skype therapy session. You'll see results very quickly with this very strategic mindfulness-based approach. Typically, after 2 or 3 weeks, you will notice significant improvements. And this approach gives you the tools that you can continue to develop to get over your agoraphobia completely. That's our goal. Not to tolerate it, not to manage it, but to heal it, so we are no longer a prisoner of our anxiety. So please contact me if this interests you, and let's schedule a Skype therapy session. Thank you.